This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And you know, the maze is that journey we're taking through life. In fact, my guest and I were just talking about how that journey sort of changed a little bit for some of us yesterday when we went through the time change. You know, we were so used to getting up at a certain time, and all of a sudden when we got up, it was an hour later. Like, where did that time go? And that's what life sometimes feels like as well. And you know what? The maze is something that we all have to work through because we learn from it. And, you know, Rand, when I was looking at your bio, one of the things that amazed me was how you were very honest in saying you've had a successful life, but you've had to overcome challenges. And many of us think that if we're faced with challenges, that we're not successful. But I don't believe that. I believe that those obstacles are put in front of us to make us more successful. So welcome to Avoid the Maze. And first, tell me where you are, because looking out your window there, it looks so beautiful today.
Well, it is great to be here, Karen, with you and your listeners. I'm here just north of San Francisco in a lovely town of Mill Valley. And Mill Valley, you know, the name comes from the fact that it was a mill town. And it's 125 years old, which, you know, in American standards is not all that long, but for California standards, it's getting there.
Right.
And we love living here. Just go right out the front door and go.
That sounds beautiful. So talk to me about challenges. I'm sure when you were, you know, a young boy, you had an idea of, oh, this is who I'm going to be when I grow up, and this is where I'm going to live. And did it all fall into that pattern, or did you find that things truly did change?
Yeah, no, I'm very pleased with the life that I've had so far, and I'm looking for a lot longer. My dad's turning 102 coming up, and mom's
Wonderful.
98. So, you know, I'm just a kid,
Yeah.
in so many ways. My journey has been scripted a little bit, and I've defined a lot of it. The scripting came in part because my father's first career was as an Army officer. And so we did some traveling. You know, you hear these stories, my gosh, kind of awkward stories of every year families at a new station.
Right.
Fortunately for us, we moved every 4 years. But that opened up the notion that the world is more than just living in one place. It's more than just the American experience. We lived in Europe, we lived in Japan, and it just gave me a sense of possibilities of being a citizen of the world in a way. One of the things that my dad planted in me very early on was the idea of getting a master's in business administration. And that was indeed the path I took after college, getting an undergraduate degree in mathematics and psychology. I went to Stanford Business School, and that was an opening of a door that I've pursued all these many decades later, and it has opened the door to me applying myself, applying my skills and talents, and it's been great in that way.
So it's interesting because there are individuals who grow up in a military family and they have the totally opposite feelings that you've had.
Right.
Constantly on the move, never having friends for more than a couple of years, not knowing where home is. And yet it sounds like your parents, and specifically your dad, as you've talked about him, basically honed you in and said, we're going to make the most of this. We're going to learn from all of this. And you're going to come out better at the end than if maybe we just lived in a little mill town, for the rest of our lives.
I think that's exactly right. And I do have sympathy with people who get uprooted. And, those challenges then can be overwhelming. My father speaks French and German and had friends, French and German friends when we lived there. Mom's just an amazingly curious person and a scientist. And so, it was an adventure, and we did make the most of it. And I've carried that through. I'm very pleased to say that I have Japanese friends from living in Japan right after my wife and I got married. We have friends in England and France and so on. And it's a way of holding the things that come your way, or in some ways creating those opportunities. And that's actually something that I do want to share with you, Karen, and your listeners, is the notion of designing your own life. Sometimes you're just on a path, and yeah, there may be a pothole, and those can really help you, toughen you, and give you more grit and resilience. I think we learn more from our difficulties and our challenges than the easy stuff. But the designing your life concept is something I've applied to my own life, and I really believe others can too. It's a big theme in my book, Thriving. There are many, many things that I've done to shape the life that I've created for myself and for my family. That includes starting my own company.
And it's interesting. We all have that ability, but we have to want to take the steps to do it. I know that I grew up in a family that initially I thought, hey, we were going to live in this, same neighborhood for the rest of our lives. In fact, at 9 or 10 years old, I was sitting on the porch in the summer and I said to my mother, someday I'm going to live in that house down the street, and I'm going to be married, and I'm going to have kids, and on Friday night we'll eat at your house, and on Sunday mornings you can come to my house for brunch. And she looked at me and she said, that's a beautiful picture. 4 years later, my father uprooted us because he got a job in Minnesota. And now I was a teenager. That dream was back there. I didn't even remember it. And now I was in a new city, making new friends, doing new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I realized too. I don't know where my future is, but you know what? I have what today is, and I'm going to build off of that. So how do you help others, realize that you don't have to be stuck? You can build what it is that you want to build.
Well, I think you've mentioned the notion of being motivated and committed. It takes risk. It's the one facet of this is making new friends, whether it's at the workplace or in the neighborhood or wherever you are. It's a set of things that you can hone and develop more, making friends. Yeah, I think it really starts with being curious and being open, being willing to listen. These are qualities that can be learned and improved. And having friends is an enormous element to going to a new job, a new place. And if you surround yourself with people who you consider to be friends, they're not just people
Right.
that you've developed some kind of relationship with. You've opened yourself up to a little bit of vulnerability, and maybe increasingly over time more vulnerability. That leads to deeper and better relationships. That's a possibility that we control.
I joined this group on Facebook. It's called the Ethel Circle, and it's mostly women who have joined the group. But so many women 50 and above, they're feeling very lonely, either empty nest syndrome, or they never had children, or they find themselves divorced or widowed, and they're saying, how do you make friends in today's world? So many people are sitting in their homes. They're not as anxious to go out because they don't know what they're going to run into out. And I wrote this morning that this Facebook group has created a group. You are now making friends, but you have to nurture it. Okay. You have to start asking the questions, what area of town do you live in? What part of the country are you in? And finding people who have like interests. So you can be sitting at home in front of a computer, making friends and finding that way out your front door.
Yeah. Well, I think we could take baby steps too. The image that you spoke about of somebody, sitting at home and being a little reluctant to go out, sitting behind the screen. These are familiar, probably to all of us, especially given the last 4 years that we've lived through. But we can practice. When you go to the store, the grocery store, at the checkout. I mean, maybe this sounds silly, but you can engage and ask the person's name. I'm routinely doing that when we're at a restaurant or something happens, and I say something about the person. I say, hey, you're looking like you're happy today, or it's a great shirt, or something. And at some point I say, by the way, what's your name? And it just all of a sudden they become a person. They're
Right.
not just the server. They're not just the person who's doing something for me because that's their job. And it leads to a level of respect, and the smile is instantaneous. And then they sometimes offer up something interesting. Oh, by the way, da da da, which I didn't know about, and I appreciate. And when I leave, I don't just, if I'm paying a bill and there's a tip, I don't just give them the tip. I thank them. And if they've already disappeared, I find where they are and say, hey, thanks very much. So those are little things we can practice, because it's not necessarily this big relationship you're creating that's going to revolutionize and change your journey, but it's a way of practicing.
Well, and it begins with ourselves giving to others what we would like back. Okay. I constantly hear individuals saying to me, yeah, but nobody invites me and nobody says hello to me. And I'm the only one in the grocery store that doesn't have conversations. And it's like, but what have you tried to do? Okay. It's just like you said. Have you said hello, to the people in the vegetable aisle? You know, if that's what you want back, you sometimes have to give it out for the other person who is thinking, hey, I never get it either. So
I think some of it's experimental. Each of us rolls forward with our own style, our own way of being. I had an experience the other day. Sitting in line or standing in line is one of the least fun things that we all have to do. And so often I find myself, if I'm in line, saying hello to the person behind or in front of me, and saying something about the store is a great store, or wow, isn't it great that they offer a coupon, or I don't know. I sort of make something up on the
sure.
fly. The other day I was at a pharmacy, and there was 3 people in line. So the fellow in front of me, I said to him, there at the checkout was a a bunch of little cars for sale, plastic cars. And I looked at him. He was about my age, and I said, "Well, which are you?" And he looked over and he immediately picked up the fire truck. He had been a fireman, and he went on. He was just delighted, And then he very nicely said, "And who are you? Which vehicle would you be?" And so then I, picked one, and we chatted about it. And before we knew it, it was his turn to do the checkout. And and then when he left, he said, "Hey, it was great to say hello, and I hope you have a great day." And so that was a possibility that I created, and it was enjoyable. Now I've honed this, so I'm now neophyte when it comes to engaging people I don't know, and I've worked really hard at building deeper and more enduring relationships with important people in my
Sure.
life. So, but one was a springboard to the other.
Absolutely. Well, I know I happen to drive a little red Beetle, and Beetles are no longer made. But ever since I've been driving it, it's now about 11 years, I have people who stop me in the parking lot as if it's something totally outrageous that I'm driving. What is that like to drive? And I just love those conversations. In fact, I told my husband this weekend, I'm never getting rid of the car because it provokes a conversation, which I truly, truly like. My husband is very outgoing in that way. Now, typically, if he's just with a group of people that he knows, he's an introvert. But you take him into a restaurant and he'll start a conversation with just about anybody else around us.
Yeah.
And I've often asked him, why is that? And he goes, I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
He said, in a small group of people I know, if I don't say the right thing, I may be judged. He said,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if it's a stranger, what do I have to lose? And he's actually made some long-term friends doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is amazing about, your ideas. But tell us a little bit about the book. Tell us what made you decide to write your book.
Well, here's my book, Thriving: How to Create a Healthier, Happier, and More Prosperous Life. I actually started collecting papers, quotes, articles. I take notes from books that I thought were really amazing, starting in high school. So dial forward a whole bunch of years later, and there was this 4-foot high stack of papers. And I began looking at this, maybe even 10 years ago. And I said, there's at least a book in here. At least there's a book or two in me, and there's a book or two in this stack. And so 4 years ago, I chunked this stack into files, which ultimately became the chapters of my book. And originally, my thought about this book was that it would be my I'd write it for my friends and family as kind of a legacy, a philosophy of life, of how I think people can live happily, successfully, and find success their way. Well, as I got into this more and more, and 18 drafts later is this book. But, I got feedback, and I said, this is a much bigger book than just for the family and the special friends. This is a book I really want to share with as many people as possible, which is why I'm so delighted to be on your podcast as well. There are important messages in this book, which allow people to really reach their potential and to thrive.
Do you find that a lot of people, when they talk about thriving, being successful, it automatically has this dollar sign? I'm not going to be successful unless I make X amount of dollars. I know when I started podcasting and blogging, a little over 10 years ago, people asked me, what do you want to get out of it? And they all were waiting for me to say, I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to be the wealthiest person in the world. And my comment was, I'm going to learn to be a happier person.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can help others along the way. I said, right now, I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm going to keep researching it. And if I can get up every day and like what I'm doing, that's going to be my success. And I had family, especially, who just said, Karen, you're wasting your time. Go work for somebody and do that. And I said, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be work, and I'm going to have to follow their dictate, that's not what's going to make me happy. Now, luckily, financially, I could afford to do this.
Yeah.
But again, when you're talking to people, are you finding more and more people are realizing that happiness isn't necessarily on their financial statement?
Well, it's an evolutionary thing. I think a lot of people need to go through a cycle. Our culture is very clear about that. The messages come at us every day, lots of ways. It's we're sort of taught to believe that we are economic animals, and the first and foremost decision we're going to make is about money, and it takes a while and a lot of self-inspection to say what is going to float my boat. What is we have this power. This is a big theme in my book. We have the power to choose, but that power comes from really knowing ourselves and being willing to swim against the tide. So what you described with your own podcast, Karen, is brilliant. It's so spot on. And to reject what other people were saying and say, no, I want to do it this way, my way. We can define success our own way. And the fundamental element, which is not easy for a lot of folks, is where is your focus? If your focus is on the neighbor, it's on the coworker, it's on the boss, it's on something else, then this is going to lead to some gaps and some struggle, and often about money, that big trip,
Sure.
the new car, whatever it is. Whereas if your focus, and again, this is a discipline, is on yourself, and you say, who am I? What am I about? What does make me happy? What makes me healthy psychologically or physically? What can I do to have more of that? What kind of life can I create for myself that is in that way? Then all of a sudden you've created some control.
Absolutely.
And that's so important. So it's the essence of thriving, I think, is to take that control, to make those choices. And in the face of sometimes family or culture or whatever saying, well, that's not going to work, or what a weirdo idea that is, that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay. And it could be also give yourself a chance, permission to say it's an experiment. I mean, 10 years ago, you could have said, hey, this is going to be great. I want to try it. And a year or two later say, hey, I'm going to have to pivot. That's
Right.
okay. That's okay.
It's interesting because in the late 60s, when I was graduating high school, I told my parents this is basically what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be out there sharing voices. And my parents looked at me and they said, we'll pay for you to go to college. You're going to get a teaching degree. Mm-hmm. Little did they know, I went to college and I took the courses that I wanted to take. When they found that out, they were not very happy. But 40 years later, I went back to school. And I remember when I was graduating with my master's, my mother said to me, you really can do it now, can't you? And I said, do what? She said, you can use your voice. She said, back then, she said, we didn't think you were a pioneer. And she was right. I wasn't a pioneer. I wanted to fall into it. But 10 years ago, I was a pioneer. And I decided, hey, this is what I can do. But it does come with those deep ruts that you can fall into. And you just have, like you said, know yourself. But I'm really interested. You mentioned your mother and father at the beginning. Father being 102, your mother in her late 90s. They obviously have been a great influence on you. Is there anything very special that you can tell us about how they truly, truly influence you to be your own person?
Wow. Well, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. Yes, in a way that may surprise you and your listeners. in so many ways, the lessons from my parents, although who I am is a combination of the great qualities both of them have, it was also a wake-up call for me to be me and to reject in some big, big ways the way they had lived. So my dad's very powerful, and made mom kind of a codependent. And so all the love I got from her was kind of in a shadow of his power. He was very tough, very disciplined, and I appreciate learning those kinds of things from him. But there are a lot of other qualities that I said, not for me. Thank you very much. So after I began my career, and especially after getting married, I said, I'm carving my own path, and I'm going to do it my way. And in some ways, they relate to things that mom and dad are about. In some ways, they are completely different. And I'm okay with that because I have a great relationship with my wife, and I'm have a lot of self-esteem, so I can forge a path that fits me, and still respect and appreciate who my parents are, and what I learned from them.
I think that's a really important message for so many of us. I know, growing up in the 50s and 60s, I have to say my parents didn't have a ton of expectations for my brothers and myself. Yes, they wanted us to go to college. They wanted us to have decent jobs. They wanted us to find love and all those things. But other than them trying to get me to become a teacher because that's what they thought was going to be the safest thing for me, when I chose not to, it was like, okay, this is your path. You're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
My one brother went to college to become an architect, and a month before his graduation, he left school, packed up all his stuff, went out to the West Coast to get into the music business. And I thought my parents were going to kill him, but he did what he wanted to do. He became successful, and my parents had to step back and go, okay, he knew
Yeah.
better than we did.
Yeah.
And my older brother, the same way. We've all created our own paths, but we sort of did it based on some of the things, like you said, we saw in our parents. They
Yeah.
were entrepreneurial to a point, but the best thing they offered us was their love and respect. And it sounds like that's what your mother and father have provided as well.
Well, it's true. And in writing this book, of course, how many thousands of books have I read in my life, but becoming a published author is this whole separate new thing for me, and I'm hugely excited about it. But every book I've ever read has dedication, and I just want to share what my dedication is, because it really picks up on exactly what you're talking about. So there are two. One, to everyone who loved me into being and helped me to thrive. And then the second one is, I want to thank all of my teachers, formal and informal, and in school, at university, in the workplace, and throughout my life. My first teachers were my mother and father. So in a way, that expresses a lot, I think, about who I am and how I'm holding where I came from, and how I became me. The me who I am is a result of a lot of factors, and overcoming hardships, and that's okay. I think they made me a better person after I reflected on them, and after I said to myself, well, let's be honest with yourself, dude. What did I contribute to that problem? Was it 100% me? Was it 90% me? What could I have done differently and better so that I don't do it again? And that's an important way of holding challenges, and in some cases mistakes, and then forgiving myself. If I've done something maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, and then make amends for it and get on with it, because carrying those rocks around is, wow, don't do that.
Well, you are so right. I belong to this small support group, and we talk about the fact that we carry this baggage on us, and we think that we've got to keep carrying it to remember it. And something happened about 6-7 months ago, and I was going through another training, and all of a sudden I realized I didn't have so much on my back anymore. I realized I didn't need it.
Yeah.
It wasn't serving me a purpose.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I went back to my group and I said, you know that problem I've been talking about? I said, that was me. And I didn't like that part of me. So I've cut it out.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I never would have thought I could do that until I started talking to individuals like yourself on my podcast, because I realized we can be our own worst enemy, or we can be our best fan. And if we're
it's gosh, you're the what you're saying is just really terrific, Karen. I talk about not only designing your own life, but also about being the author of our own story, which gives us the power of being the author. You can edit, you can delete, you
Yep.
can revise, and you can select, hey, that might have been me 5 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, but that's not the me now. And yes, I learned from it. It's not as if it disappeared, but I don't have to make it a main theme anymore. I can kind of skip over that. This is another power we have. And being emotionally healthy is something of great importance. How many people have I met in my life, and I'm guessing you and your listeners too, who are great people and they're doing good stuff, but they're troubled. They're not emotionally healthy. And what I boil down this to, in aside from people who need special help, who need professional help, I'm not referring to those folks. I'm talking about things that are in our bailiwick. And one is this notion of forgiving ourselves and forgiving others. And sometimes you got to reach deep to do that. Either way, yourself or others. Another is to stop self-sabotaging. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. People don't even get into the game. They say, well, I won't be accepted in, that school or that program or that job. Or if I reach out to that person, they seem to like me, or it seemed like a cool thing, but they'll reject me, or they won't even respond to my email.
right.
And they don't give themselves this. The self-sabotaging is another. If you see it happening, just squeeze it and toss it out the window. And then the third is this learning to let go. And learning to let go, especially if you've had some success in your life, I think is very hard. And as a parent, you mentioned your brother coming out, and your parents had to say, well, I guess it's working and we'll have to accept it. This learning to let go is a really fascinating thing. I've been really working on this personally, because I'm interested in continuing to evolve in life. I've been practicing this a lot in the last dozen years. I've raised my kids. They're fantastic individuals. They're both married. They're doing really well, but they've made decisions along the way that I would not have made for myself. I would not have made for them. And I had to learn to let go. So I do this little exercise. Maybe I could do it with you now,
Sure.
where I hold up my fist. I'm holding on to something. It could be something that's bothering me or something I'm not controlling. And I'm squeezing my fist. I can see the white knuckles.
Okay.
And I'm saying, okay, I can't let go of this. I'd like to, but I just can't let go of that. And then I turn my fist over and I still see the white knuckles. And I'm saying, man, come on, when are you going to let go of that? And then I, with my power, say, now. I'm letting go of this right now. And I open my hand slowly, wiggle the fingers, wiggle the thumb, and my hand sort of floats up into the sky because it's so much lighter. I don't carry that weight anymore. And so I've been doing that. And fortunately, I have to do it less and less often as little exercise. But when I find myself clutching onto this thing, I do the little exercise and I smile because I say, aha, there you go again. And it helps me. It helps me when I realize what I'm doing. And then it allows me this, chance to make a move.
It's interesting because I've always, in the past, I was a person who would hold on to everything. And my husband used to say to me, I love you so much, but when you have a grudge, you hold on to it. You do not let it go. And I didn't understand that because I kept saying, oh, no, I do. But then one day I realized I don't. And especially in the last year or so, he went back to work full time. And during the week, he is totally exhausted. I get it. Okay. And I'm very accommodating to that. Comes the weekend, he's still very tired. And in the beginning, I was getting really upset about it. And I was holding on to all of it and just like really getting mad. But something happened around the first of the year. And I looked at him and I thought, why am I getting angry? What is it I want him to do? And when I couldn't name it, it was like, almost like you said, my knuckles were turning white. I couldn't let go. But once I let go of it, it was so much easier.
Yeah.
And this weekend, I proved to him, it was like, I know you're tired. I have someplace to go for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal. But when I came home, he was more receptive. Okay. He had gotten the extra sleep that he needed. So I think you're right that we have to figure out, is this doing me any good to feel the pain that I'm feeling? Or what will happen if I let it go? Will I feel much better?
Well, I'm very big about this taking a look inside, as you can tell from some of my other comments. And taking a look inside is both stuff that's not working as well as stuff that is that really allows you to navigate forward to skills and talents and outlook. There are four things that we can control, and we can control them today. It's our attitude, our effort, our behavior, and very importantly, our actions. So once we sort of surround ourselves with that and we recognize, we take this look, what's working, what's not working, what can I control right now, all of a sudden a lot of things open up. And you can make these shifts, these important shifts, like, hey, okay, dear, why don't you sleep for another couple hours? I'll be back. And then, I'll look forward to seeing you then. In a positive way. A lot of negativity. We're living in a world of cynicism, and it's easy to kind of be upset because there's so many things that are happening, maybe in our neighborhood or, on the bigger plane that just don't seem to be going well. And you say, well, wait a minute, that's not where I want to be. I want to be positive. And so I'm going to create a space, and it may be small and it may get bigger. I hope it gets bigger, of a positive outlook. And it's a beautiful day. Here it is, the sun's shining. It's not raining here in Northern California. And, I woke up and I looked out and I had a smile on my face.
Well, I have to tell you, in Northeast Ohio during the winter, it typically is very gray and dreary. And a very good friend of mine said to me one day, Karen, it may look gray and dreary out there, but do you know the sun is out? The sun came up this morning like every other morning. It's just behind the clouds. So look beyond the
Beautiful.
clouds. That has
Beautiful.
made such a difference in my outlook. Okay. Now today it is a beautiful day here, like it is in California, but yesterday it was raining and cloudy, and
Yeah.
I sat here in the office. I looked out my window, and beyond those clouds, there is sun. And boy, that changes my attitude.
Well, one of the things that springs to mind when you talk about, I love this idea that the sun's still there, it's just behind the clouds, is this notion of gratitude. And there's a great quote. My book is full of these amazing quotes, and I think people continue to tell me they're so well placed. The quote I'm thinking about is, "The struggle ends when gratitude begins." uh, it to me, it's a very powerful thing, because you look at the possibilities of what am I looking at? That gray cloud, and it's not very bright here, and oh gosh. And then you say to myself, and 2 days ago it was really a beautiful day and sunny. And the weather forecast, much as we can believe those folks, is saying that we're going to have a beautiful day coming up. And so this idea of being grateful, you can always find something to be grateful for. And it may be something in the past, and it may be something you're looking forward to. It could be just right now, with the recognition that the sun is there. It's a beautiful thing, and gratitude is essential. It's an essential quality. Again, it's a habit. It's a practice. You say to
Sure.
yourself, what am I grateful for? Take a moment, maybe jot it down in a journal. It's a component of aging well. If you're grateful, if you practice gratitude, amongst a number of other things, including like being emotionally healthy and being positive. We've talked about a bit of those. Really, really important elements to aging well. And we all age, but we don't all age well.
You're right. You are absolutely correct. Well, how can we find your book? Because I know there's a lot in it, and it's going to help a lot of us out here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so it's available at Amazon. It's also available at all the independent bookstores, Barnes and Noble, and so on. So you can just go there. You can also go to my website, randselig.com, RandSelig.com, and you can read about my bio and what the book's about. There are 6 amazing testimonials from all kinds of folks, including the head of Kaiser Permanente, because of the health component. Kaiser's slogan is "Thrive," so it was a nice fit for that. And there's quotes. You can download quotes by chapter. I think they're a sweet freebie, and also list of podcasts. So if you like this one and you want to have more, that's there. So you can also order the book at the
Sure.
website.
Well, we're going to have that all in the show notes. So for those of you listening, please don't say you didn't get the information, because it's right there. And all you're going to have to do is click on it, because I make the link so available to you. So Rand,
Good.
thank you for getting up early this morning, because it is early on the West Coast. We appreciate you, and thanks for making our day just a little bit brighter. I appreciate that.
Karen, I very much enjoyed the conversation. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And I'll wish you a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.